Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. Facebook down, and could the law in the US be trying to take them out? Climate change is putting us en route to disaster, but one high school student is proving there's no step too small in the fight for change. And calls grow to cancel a Fox News host as he stands firm. All right, top of the news feed. The big bosses at Facebook are trying to figure out why its apps have been down in parts of the world for hours in one of the worst outages they have ever seen. People all over the globe have been reporting problems when they're trying to use Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp. Some users still can't get on 12 hours later. Now, it's not clear what caused the outage, but Facebook says it wasn't hackers. The hashtag Facebook down took off on Twitter of all places for people missing out on all those dank memes. And even Instagram had to tweet to let people know if they're back up and running. How ironic. But Facebook potentially has a much bigger problem on its hands. The company is now at the center of a criminal investigation in the US. Lawyers there are looking into deals that Facebook had struck with big tech firms that give access to your data. Here's Jacob Brown.
Those complex passwords we're always being asked to create are supposed to lock the door on our most personal information. But as people start to ask more questions about cyber privacy, we're starting to learn exactly who's got access to the spare keys. According to the New York Times, business records from two major smartphone makers have been ordered by a grand jury. Supposedly, the documents show deals made between those companies and Facebook, giving them access to the personal data of hundreds of millions of users. Information like the names of friends and contact details, often given without a user's expressed consent. Around 150 other companies had a similar setup, including Microsoft and Apple. Facebook says most of the deals have been phased out, but when news of them first dropped last year, Facebook said it was simply to give tech companies access to its features, such as like buttons and messaging. Responding to the Times report, Facebook said it is cooperating with all investigations, has given public testimony and will continue to do so. The Department of Justice is putting more pressure on Facebook, which already faces different lawsuits and investigations over how it handles privacy. Most famously, its links to Cambridge Analytica, the company which Facebook shared the data of 87 million people with, leading to boss Mark Zuckerberg having to testify in front of US Congress.
We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
Facebook has already started to act, giving its privacy settings an overhaul last year and making the controls easier to find. And just last week, Zuckerberg unveiled plans to keep conversations encrypted on more of its messaging platforms. But on a day when Facebook services suffered a major global outage and the spotlight was put on its privacy policies once again, could a return to old-fashioned communication end up to be the most reliable?
All right, next up, climate change protests. Now, they've been happening for decades, but they've never been as vital as they are right now. Perhaps none have gained as much traction as the one started by a 16-year-old Swedish student called Greta Thunberg. Now, her efforts have not only resulted in some heads of states getting involved, she's inspired a global movement called Fridays for Future. And tomorrow, students from more than 1,000 cities in more than 100 countries are joining the cause because it doesn't seem enough world leaders are taking the threat seriously.
We are on a school strike for the climate. Now we need to get angry and hold the old generations accountable for the mess that they have created.
Some people, some companies, some decision makers in particular have known exactly what priceless values they have been sacrificing to continue making unimaginable amounts of money. And I think many of you here today belong to that group of people.
Right now we're at the cleanest we've ever been, and it's very important to me. But if we're clean, but every other place on earth is dirty, that's not so good.
But I've learned that you are never too small to make a difference. And if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school, then imagine what we could all do together if we really wanted to.
Well done, Greta. Let's take a look at some of the other things that have caught our eye on social media. Another K-pop superstar has had to quit the business after admitting to filming women without their consent and then sharing that footage in chat rooms. Jung Joon-young says he admits to all his crimes. He's the second K-pop singer this week to be caught engaging in such activity. A guy called Seung-giri retired himself on Monday. Both men now face police investigation. And we love this one. Two jokesters paid for a billboard as a way of saying happy birthday to their dad. As you can see, it has his face and his phone number. He's received thousands of phone calls and text messages from all around the globe. So as well as the billboard, he'll also be getting a new phone for his birthday. The man in the photo is called Chris Ferry, and he says his sons Michael and Christopher have been harassing and pranking him since they were able to do so. Happy families. Now, a trial is getting underway in Saudi Arabia. Facing the court, a woman who's been protesting for the right to drive. Her family and human rights activists say she's been tortured and fear her trial is merely for show. protests. The jailing of a high-ranking member of the Catholic Church in Australia has been met with mixed reactions. Some people say now he's not going to serve anywhere near enough time.
Sentence of 6 years I thought was, way too low. You've got to remember it's about the damage to the victim. It's not about the rehabilitation prospects of the pedophile. There's a price to be paid. Do the crime, do the time, and Pal got very little time.
Next, a host for Fox News called Tucker Carlson in the US is a focus of a growing social media campaign to get him and his show cancelled. Take a look at this.
Is a crappy place filled with a bunch of, semi-literate primitive monkeys. I still can't get over, Obama saying they're not gonna, they're gonna attack me because I'm black. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, that is so low to say something like that.
Well, see, Tucker, here's
everybody knows that Barack Obama would still be in the state Senate in Illinois if he were white. I mean, I love women, but they're extremely primitive. They're basic. They're not that hard to understand.
Fox News is behind us, as they have been since the very first day. Toughness is a rare quality at a TV network, and we are grateful for that. Second, we've always apologized when we're wrong, and we'll continue to do that. That's what decent people do. They apologize. But we will never bow to the mob. Ever. No matter what.
It's been around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Thursday. Now, a wall is going up around the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. Videos of it have been shared on social media. The Egyptian government says the wall is for the security of tourists. The locals describe it as turning the town into a prison. Egypt is desperate to boost its tourism industry after a number of terror attacks in recent years, including the downing of a plane full of Russian tourists. The proposed budget of President Trump is getting some terrible headlines online. Reporters have been combing through it since it was published earlier in the week, and it's been found to have a depressing detail. Trump wants to spend more on the military than on all other government departments combined. Now, one department that will face severe cuts is the Department for Housing and Urban Development. That's one that helps some of the most vulnerable people in society. And the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands is going over the heads of the Dutch government to try and return colonial artifacts stolen by Dutch soldiers and sailors in the 18th and 19th century. There are growing calls for museums in Europe and other parts of the world to return these stolen objects from Africa and Asia that were taken during the Age of Empire. The pieces the Rijksmuseum want to give back come from Sri Lanka and Indonesia. And that will be all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter and YouTube, and you can follow me on Instagram. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again tomorrow.